A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Our case this week, police in Alabama say that a mother-daughter duo killed another mom who was seen as a love rival for the affections of a man. The theory appears to be, get rid of the woman and then you get the man. Well, the harsh reality here is that an innocent woman has been murdered. That man, for sure, wants nothing to do with the accused female killers. And now the daughter in that alleged murderous duo has pleaded guilty to murder and has agreed to testify against her mother in order to avoid the death penalty. Looks like the mother-daughter bond may have been severed forever. We are recording this on Friday, September 26th of 2025. Our guest today is Mike King, a law enforcement expert with a specialty in cults and serial predators. Mike is also the creator and host of Profiling Evil, not to mention a prolific author, friend of the show, friend of mine. Welcome back, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, Anna. Thanks so much for letting me come back and join you. It's so good to see you.
I love your background. For those of you who are listening and are not watching, it's like you're in front of that Sears portrait in his studio. He has a background of fall leaves out on a deck somewhere, and the leaves are moving in the wind.
It is beautiful here. We're just the east of Park City, up in the mountains, so quite a bit east of Park City.
Wow. Well, it's beautiful. It's so cool that you can do this outside. I think one of these days I'm going to do it somewhere outside from LA. There'll be police, helicopters, awesome. Sirens, coyotes. Life in LA. All right. Let's get down to the serious business today of this case, which really has me angry. It has me angry because I cannot tolerate the loss of life. And murder is not the solution to a problem. I say that over and over again. But there's something about when you have the alleged suspects here, the alleged killers, are a mother and a daughter. This undoes me. It would be the same thing if it were a father and son or a mother and son. I mean, this multi-generational crime spree is what has me so scared.
Yeah, and the thing that really troubles me when we see cases like this is kind of the chicken and the egg question of is the child being compelled to be a part of this thing, or is the child innately just kind of a crummy person anyway? And so I think as we unfold this one and we talk more about it, I mean, maybe it'll answer a few questions. Maybe it'll cause us to have more. I don't know.
Well, child, I don't know if I would say that. She was 20 at the time. So yeah. I'm old enough to know better.
Go to prison.
Old enough to know better, though. But it's interesting that you use the term child, because one of the things that she tried to do, that the daughter tried to do, was to convince the courts, well, I was a youthful offender at the time, so I should be given some leniency. It's like, and the court said, yeah, no, you're 20. You're not 14. Okay, let's get into this because we have a huge update on this murder case. That's why we're doing this case. It's out of DeKalb County, Alabama, where police say a mother and daughter allegedly teamed up to kill a romantic rival. The daughter has agreed to a plea deal. She has pled guilty to murder. She has, as part of this deal, she agrees to testify against her mother, and what she gets in return is she will be spared the death penalty. So the daughter is going to spend 40 years in prison for her cooperation, which includes leading police to the remains of the victim here. So the daughter is 24-year-old Jessie Kelly. And what's interesting is, will she buckle and change part of her story once it's time to testify in front of her mother? We'll get to that later. Her mother is 45-year-old Loretta Carr. She is set to go on trial later this year for the murder of 37-year-old Mary Isbel, who went by Beth and also referred to as Mary. The mother-daughter pair is accused of kidnapping Mary, then pushing her off a cliff. And the plan, according to authorities, was to make it look like Mary had jumped, which she did not. Now, Mary had just one child, Skylar. He was 16 at the time his mother disappeared. Everyone knew something was wrong when Mary didn't call her son on his birthday. And so that's kind of where the clock begins for everyone. What's going on? Why would a mother not call her son? What happened? Yes, something is very wrong when a mother doesn't call her son on his birthday.
Well, I guess there's a couple of things that really bug me. Number one is that it took a couple of months for the actual notification that she's missing to come out. And that's always troubling because it shows just a really dysfunctional family, in my opinion, and a lot of disconnect. But that is such an important thing because you're absolutely right. I don't know of any mother, regardless of their circumstance, that doesn't reach out to the children that they brought into this world, especially on something like a birthday. And I guess the question that I would have as someone who always looks at behavior is, what has she done over the previous the previous 17 years or 16 years of this young man's life? Was she involved in that? Was it an important day, or was it something that just really wasn't that important? So that kind of helps us kind of lean one way or another on how important the fact is she didn't call. But then even more troubling is that this human being disappears from the planet for months before somebody reports it.
Yeah, there was something there. Her family has recently come forward to speak a little bit about who she was and how much they miss her. They recently did an interview with Way 31 TV. Now, I agree there's some things that we still don't know in this case, and you have to understand there's still one trial pending. So authorities have released quite a bit of information, but the details of who that man was, right? This alleged, love square, because I don't even think it's a triangle. They have not been able to explain to us what happened, what allegedly set things off. He hasn't been identified. A lot of details that we don't know. Mary was actually reported missing by her ex-husband, and it wasn't until a few months later. So there are a few things we don't understand. The kind of communication that was going on. Mary worked, and she had her own remodeling business. And I also find it interesting that police talk about trying to find where Mary lived. That it took them time to figure out where her residence was. So there's some details here that we are missing, and there may be a good reason why it's been withheld. I really don't know. But at the end of the day, you have one woman who has been murdered in a most brutal way, and there is no good reason. This was ridiculous. I don't know what these two were thinking. Again, the stupidity and the lack of respect for life is what always upsets me so much.
Anna, and the other thing that kind of troubles me is that clearly law enforcement has made a link analysis from this supposed man in the life of both the victim and the perpetrator, or the alleged perpetrator in this case. But why don't we know more about that? Why isn't there some social media about my girlfriend's missing, or why isn't there some kind of contact that says that these three people were connected together in place and time? What were the conversations that maybe were had after the victim is thrown off the cliff? And is there supposition that's being brought up, like, hey, you'll never have to worry about her again, or let me make it clear that I'm the one that you love? But all of that just speaks to this desperate feeling that the alleged perpetrator must have had to go to these kinds of extremes. It was a younger woman, and as my wife often says, be very cautious of a woman's scorn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, if what the authorities are saying is true about Loretta Carr, It's just like, let me just tell you here, Loretta. He wants nothing to do with you right now. Let me tell you, okay? This is just the reality. I just sometimes think, and I always, here's the other thing, because they supposedly kidnapped Mary on top of all of this, that it makes you think at each point you could have stopped and said, okay, well, this is bad, but murder is worse. But no, it's like, where is that self-control button? Where is it? Okay, let's get back to the case. This is a case that's been going on for a long time, 4 years. For the first two, no one knew what happened to Mary. No one knew what happened to Mary. You know, and then everything changes when a tip comes into police in 2023. And that led them directly, they say, to the mother-daughter team. The two were arrested, and apparently the daughter is the one who led authorities to the area where Mary was killed, and they ultimately found her remains. What's interesting is, even to this day, police say that one of the co-conspirators led them to the body, but they won't name which one. Well, there's only two, and one has agreed to testify against the other. So who do you think it is? It has to be the daughter.
Yeah, the deal maker. I mean, yeah, I'm with you.
Exactly. So that's also kind of a little odd. It's like, to the authorities, it's like, the kid who has like a little sheet and is pretending to be invisible because he or she is covered. It's like, but you don't see me. I'm like, hello, you've only got two co-conspirators here. One has led you to the body by your own details that you have released. So which one is it? It has to be her. So.
And doesn't it make you wonder, Anna, if drugs are involved or other kinds of things where after a period of time sitting in jail on an arrest warrant, that some clarity comes and they say, hey, I'm going to try to clean this up, or a lawyer steps in and says, hey, I think we can make a little bit of a deal, which, I don't know, 40 years doesn't seem like that good of a deal in this day and climate. But something had to have happened where all of a sudden, if one of the two perpetrators comes forward and says, let me show you where the body is and let me tell you all about it, that they haven't had some kind of a moral awakening. And I don't ever see that in psychopathic personalities, but I do see it when there's somebody that's involved with drug abuse or other things and they finally start to get their mind clear.
It could be, but it also could be, that if what she is saying is true, what the daughter is saying is true, and I don't know what the truth, honestly, because I'm sorry, you sat and you lived your life for 2 years until this tip came in, Mary was dead, and everyone was missing her, but you went on with your life. So I'm sorry, you got no sympathy for doing quote the right thing, telling people where Mary's body is and then confessing to it and then testifying against your mother. I think it's entirely possible that if she was pressured by her mother, Loretta, and she realized what she was facing, that her only way out, really, especially if she's not the one who pushed Mary, her only way out, and it's not even out, is to just tell the truth. Just tell the truth,
Well, and clearly there must be a death penalty on the table because
yes.
There wasn't really any other reason to make a deal at that point.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't at all. So Mary's family, as I said, has really not said a lot about Mary, but they did sit down for an interview with Way 31 TV. And Mary was the youngest of 5 sisters. She ran her own remodeling business. She was very capable and smart and hardworking. And Skylar, her son, is also interviewed by the TV station. And he told the reporter that what he was sad about was that his mother missed all of his milestones, right? Graduating high school, getting a car. And he misses his mother terribly, and he says he wants justice for his mother, and as do her sisters. And that's why, as the cases are moving through the justice system, they wanted to finally have a moment to focus not on the killers, which happens a lot, but on the victim here. Investigators and prosecutors have really been tight-lipped, Mike, because there's so much we don't understand about this case that at this point they really should have worked out. But what they believe to be the motive, again, and not with great details, is that the three women involved in this case, the victim and the two alleged perpetrators, are somehow connected to this one man who's unnamed, and we don't know the details of the relationships. Because the other thing is, and this happens all the time, a man or a woman gets jealous because of a perceived rival. They might not even really be a rival. And we've seen that before. I don't know what the case is here. If the daughter is to be believed, if Jessie is to be believed, it appears that her mother, Loretta, may have been the primary aggressor in this alleged plot. And Jessie's cellmates, this is the part that I don't understand, have indicated, wrote letters to the judge that Jessie, the daughter, was forced into this plan by her mother. Who knows if this is true, but here's the thing. Okay, am I the only one here whose red flag is saying, wait a minute. The people standing up for Jessie, the daughter, to say it's really not her fault are fellow cellmates that she just met in jail because she's been arrested for murder. I'm just like, help me out here, Mike.
Yeah, no, wouldn't you think you'd want somebody at the time the murders happened that said, oh, she was reaching out to me saying, I feel so much pressure from my mom or something, not after I've gotten in jail and I'm starting to make deals.
They really wrote these letters to the judge. And I could just imagine if I were the judge, I'd be like, wait a minute. You're asking me to accept the credibility of the people who are speaking up as character witnesses who are behind bars.
And you just met. Yeah.
So back to the details here. According to sheriff's investigators, authorities believe that Mary was killed around October 18th or 19th of 2021, and police say that Jessie and Loretta showed up at Mary's trailer, confronted her, they allegedly had a gun, and that they used the gun, allegedly, to hit Mary. She was all bloody, and then they kidnap her, and then they allegedly take her to Loretta's home, the mother's place. Here's what's interesting. According to investigators, Loretta forces Mary to take a shower because she's all bloody, and she doesn't want that. I'm like, I'm sorry, is this the inconvenience of a crime? And I guess, right?
I'm with you. I mean, what's the purpose behind that unless it's part of this staging process that's going on, and the fact that they've got some ultimate plan to go somewhere where they're going to be passing the public, and they don't want this bloody, beaten woman. Instead, they'd rather have somebody that looks like they're kempt. I don't know.
And I guess they thought, oh, well, if she jumps off the cliff, then of course she's going to be hit in the head because at some point her head will hit something. Detectives say that the pair took Mary to Little River Canyon. It's a national park. And then they pushed her off a cliff. The daughter says Mary pleaded for her life, but Loretta wouldn't listen. Very sad. The daughter claims it was the mother who pushed her. Now, you might say, why didn't anybody find her? Well, this park, this national park, is something like 15,000 square acres. I mean, it's enormous. Yeah. So it's very hard to find people in places like this. It is described as the Grand Canyon of Alabama, for perspective. The plan, according to prosecutors, why are you laughing at me, Mike?
Well, I live in a state that has a piece of the Grand Canyon in it. I'm just trying to envision.
Yes, it is very hard to envision the Grand Canyon in Alabama, which is mostly flat.
But you know, it is interesting. I mean, even if I look over my shoulders, you could have a murder site in the bushes just off of the edge of a dirt road and never discover that darn thing. And so, but then you take it and put someone up on a cliff and throw them down, probably to an area that people don't generally hike along, then it's really easy. And frankly, they probably could have got away with it for an awfully long time.
They
So
did.
it
They got
makes,
away with it for 2 years.
yeah, but doesn't it make you wonder? Somebody started talking, and that caused the ship to sink.
So who was it that tipped off police? That's the thing. Who was it and what was the information that they had? We don't know. We don't know the answer to that. When Mary's ex-husband reported her missing in December of 2021, he called police, he posted something on Facebook, and when they finally found Mary's residence and police went in to do a check, police say there were obvious signs of a struggle. There was a bloody handprint that apparently belonged to Mary, and so police at that point knew Mary had met with foul play, which sometimes when people disappear or abducted, there are no signs of a struggle, but in this one there was. So that is very troubling. It's an indication that she has been injured and the possibility of loss of life. Then investigators went through her phone records and contacted the people who were in her text messages. Investigators said that at the time, the mother-daughter duo was already on their radar. Okay? So something in those communications made investigators question them and put a pin in it and said, okay, I don't know about these two, but couldn't take it beyond that. Don't you find that interesting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's part of the investigative process, because I think they probably fairly quickly identified the link between the boyfriend, the now missing individual, and the and Loretta, and all of a sudden it gives them a target to start throwing some trial balloons out, maybe testing the water a little, talking to friends, seeing if behaviors have changed, watching the way in which they react. But these cases take such a long time to build. And frankly, a lot of jurisdictions, unless they have a body, aren't really ready to move forward. They may have had a criminal case that on a circumstantial basis they could have made arrests and charged people with homicide before ever finding Mary's body. But in some jurisdictions, the prosecutors want that body in hand.
Yeah, and it is very difficult to figure out what happened to a person. If you can suspect a lot of things, but if you don't have enough evidence to bring the charges and then carry that all the way forward to trial, there won't be justice because it won't survive the test of the justice system.
So Anna, don't you find it interesting though that this individual could go weeks, if not months, from the time she disappears from the face of the planet to the time that her ex-husband, someone who really doesn't have daily contact with her, but says, hey, something's goofy here. Doesn't she have people that she's in daily contact with? If she's running a successful business, aren't there customers who are saying, wait a minute, where are you? Why aren't her bills being paid? Or why isn't she answering texts? And maybe all that will come out in the trial, but those become really intriguing behavioral characteristics to me.
Agreed. And we do not have those answers yet. And hopefully they will be revealed as they go forward with Loretta's case. And I don't know how much, I'm sure that they have received a lot of information from Jessie, obviously, or they wouldn't have cut a deal. And Jessie leading them to Mary's remains, Jessie kind of describing what happened. And if that lines up with the forensics, if it makes sense, then one can believe, at least to a degree, that she's telling the truth, because they did find Mary's remains. So we'll see how much of this is made public before Loretta's case, or we may have to wait until it goes to trial. So the tip here is really what changed everything. This tip changed everything. Investigators say that in June of 2023, they get a tip that opens it all up and changes the direction of this case. not necessarily from where police eyes were trained, but makes it possible for there to be arrests. Here is Nick Brown, the chief investigator for the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, from a news conference explaining that tip. And this is from the reference point of as it's happening. So this is from a few years ago as he's revealing the details.
Ultimately, a tip came in last Tuesday, and that tip was determined to be very credible after checking into it. A lot of work went in to speaking to people, doing a lot of different search warrants. And ultimately, we were able to track down 2 suspects in the case. Through some witness information that we received and through a co-defendant statement, we were able to make 2 arrests in the case, Loretta Carr and Jessie Kelly.
So whatever it is that the tipster said lined up with what authorities had found already. And that is when police arrested Loretta and Jessie. What is interesting here is that when Jessie is arrested, Jessie is behind bars already on another charge. And then the local reporters in the area say when the 2 of them finally get to DeKalb County, authorities made the decision that they were going to house the mother and the daughter separately.
Yeah, great move. Great move. Obviously, you want to do everything you can to start to divide them so that you can conquer. But clearly, this is also an opportunity for Jessie to start testing the system, and we see her doing that in a number of ways, don't we?
Well, yes. As she starts making friends behind bars, who will be her character witnesses? I don't know.
And then, to go forward, and you mentioned this early on, but then go forward and say, look, I'm just a kid. I can't be held responsible for this. And they say, no, that's not going to fly. And then all of a sudden she's willing to make a deal and say, hey, okay, you cut us a little better deal. You take death penalty off the table, and I'll show you where the body is. And I'll tell you, if I were the investigator, I'd be jumping for joy to take the death penalty off the table to get the body.
Right, because she's still going to spend a lot of time behind bars. But when you step back and you look at this, if what's being said here is true, you have to keep in mind that it's Loretta who raised this child.
Yeah.
And so with that comes not really good parenting skills, obviously, and not giving Jessie the nurturing and the support necessary to make good decisions when one matures.
Yeah, the apple appears not to have fallen far from the tree, to use that old saying. But in the same light, what really needs to come out now is, even at 20 years old, some people can really have lived a life where they are compelled and driven and under control. And so it'll be interesting to hear that control, or if that control exists. Doesn't change the fact that there still needs to be justice, that there still needs to be accountability, but it might lend some value to the idea that she was throughout her life under the control of her mother. If I were the defense, that's what I'd be pushing.
Yes, and that could be a very interesting narrative when Loretta goes on trial, because it will paint a greater picture. I don't think we're going to get a lot of sympathy for Jessie here, but it will certainly paint a picture to the jury about what maybe Loretta is capable of. So Loretta's arrested on June 25th of 2023, and as we said, Jessie was behind bars at the time of her arrest. She was up in Pennsylvania on another felony. She finally gets extradited. Mother and daughter brought back. So back to investigator Nick Brown. This is what he shared about Mary when the arrests were announced. And I was very touched by what he said because he's talking about Mary watching this from heaven. Let's play the clip.
I know, speaking to Mary's family, that she was saved, she was washed in the blood, and I don't have a doubt that she's looking down right now thinking, finally, you guys did it. You guys found my killers and you recovered me, but the family, this is bittersweet.
It really is extraordinary that the positive identification of those remains came in on Mary's birthday.
Yeah, and whether that was theatrics and that they planned it so that it came out on that day. I mean, you really try in law enforcement when it's possible to use anniversary dates because they're significant and they help carry the story. Or it may have been one of those just predestined blessings, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, really incredible here. On August 25th of this year, of 2025, Jessie pleaded guilty to 1 count of murder in Mary's death in exchange for testifying against her mother. Prosecutors then downgraded the murder charge from capital murder to murder, and so she was sentenced to 40 years behind bars. Now, the question is, now that Jessie has her deal, my question to you, Mike, is, Jessie doesn't really have to say anything else. She's already been sentenced. They're not going to renege on it. Is it at all possible, that Jessie's going to show up as Loretta's daughter and try and save her mother?
Boy, that would be wild, wouldn't it? Because everything at this point suggests that she has thrown her mother under the bus in order to save herself and get a reduced sentence. The sentence was beefy, and that's going to play in the favor, I think, of the prosecution. That look, she may have got the deal. She wasn't going to be executed, but she's still going to spend the majority of her life in prison. And so that's going to play in the favor of the prosecution, I believe. Even if she were to come back and say, hey, I was forced into all of this, I think the judge is going to rule that dog don't hunt.
And the reason I bring this up, I do believe it's unlikely, but if Jessie has been kept separate from her mother and then she sees her mother in the courtroom and then she buckles under pressure and old behaviors, who knows?
Really interesting point. And you see that happen, especially with young victims, when they see their perpetrator or the person who hurts them, they start to revert back into that subordinate role. But I also think that she's had some time in prison to toughen up. She's building her apparent support system around her. She clearly has said, I don't want anything to do with my mother because I'm going to testify against her. I would be surprised, but I think you really give me some hope in wanting to watch this trial just to see what her response is the day she's brought in to testify. Will she even look at her mother as she testifies, other than the moment she has to point her out and say that's her in the courtroom?
Oh, I think Mother Loretta will be glaring at her. Ooh. Every time I see those moments in a trial where a child is testifying against their parent and that look, that parent's scorn that you see, oh my God, so frightening. So frightening. And we'll see if this goes to trial. My guess is Loretta thinks that she can prove that it wasn't her, and she can maybe turn it around and say, hey, my daughter has already confessed to this. And why did she do that? Because she's the one who pushed her. I don't know.
And that's interesting, Anna, because I think, if I remember the evidence correctly that they've released publicly, that it's Jessica's handprint that has Mary's blood inside of Mary's residence, that when they recover that handprint, that they somehow have forensically determined that it's Jessica's print. I don't know if they've forensically placed Loretta in the crime scene, and so theoretically she could go in, I guess, and say, hey, I wasn't there, but
it wasn't me.
Yeah. some other dude.
I don't know. I just think that I think the probability of a conviction is very high here for Loretta if she does go forward to trial. And I think it's possible that if Jessie, the daughter, can maintain her strength, that there will be some credibility to her. And I think, as I said a little bit earlier, it will weigh heavily on the jury that she at least did tell police where the remains were and made it possible to move forward with this case and to permit Mary's family to at least bury her and respect her body and remains.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the other key factor here is the state has a death penalty hanging over her head. And so if this goes to trial, I would be surprised. I would be less surprised if a negotiated plea of a life without parole or something like that is brought into play.
Well, we expect trial for Loretta to happen later this year unless she cuts a deal. We'll see what happens. We'll be following it. Will Updike, our producer, who usually does the comments section, is not here today. So instead of a comment section, which honestly no one can do better than Will, I'm just going to read some of the comments from our last podcast because, as many of you know, I do try to read and respond to your comments because I really enjoy the conversation that we have. And sometimes y'all point out stuff that I may have missed in investigating a case, and you just look at things differently, and I'm always impressed with that. So I love that we have this wonderfully vocal group on Facebook, on YouTube, but on Facebook too. I mean, you guys also comment there, but YouTube is really the forum that we have. So I just want to read some of your comments. And this is the case we did last week involved a mother who had a nightmare about her daughter's car being stolen, and that she woke up feeling very uneasy, and then she couldn't contact her daughter. And then she received this odd response that didn't sound like her via text. And ultimately, that's because her daughter had just been murdered. And so we discussed the spiritual part of this, of a mother waking up with anxiety from a nightmare, right? And it's just, wow. And as part of the crime, the daughter's car, the murder victim, her car was actually driven, allegedly, by the killer and parked a few miles away. So part of the mother's dream was not wrong. So that's what this comment is about. I wanted to give you the context of that. And this is from Carol Rogers. And she writes, the connection that her mother has with her daughter is amazing, beautiful, and so sad at the same time. I hope that they can find her body. My prayers for the family. In this case, Mike, the remains have never been found, but her ex-boyfriend has been charged with her murder. And what's interesting about this case is the pretrial hearing has a lot of circumstantial evidence, and the judge is trying to decide whether or not this will go forward to trial. So that's why this next comment is going to be interesting. This is from ESK2G. Circumstantial evidence and direct evidence hold the same weight. And then someone else gets into the conversation and says, this is really ICU, responds, yes and yes. Why have we let TV shows and defense attorneys bend this law? Direct evidence is powerless without good circumstantial evidence. What do you think, Mike? I like to think that really you need both. You need it all. You need as much evidence as possible.
Amen. I mean, here's the deal. There are 4 traditional forms of evidence. We talk about the physical and the forensic and eyewitness accounts and confessions, but the secret is when you start talking about circumstantial is that thing that says, hey, there's powdered sugar on your lips. Chances are that missing powdered sugar donut was consumed by you. It's the thing that says A plus B is really going to equal C. And so what we need to kind of remind ourselves is that any case that's built on a single form of evidence, in my opinion, is a shaky case. If you're only relying on someone's eyewitness accounts, or you're only relying on the fact that a bullet casing was found at their house, that's really kind of thin ice, in my opinion. But if that bullet corroborates with the casing being found at my house, and the fact that there was a half-eaten powdered sugar donut and I'm covered with powdered sugar, those are circumstantial, and they say that this is most likely going to be accurate. And I think normal people, especially jurors, can buy off on circumstantial a whole lot faster than they can buy off even on science in many cases.
Because the science can be confusing, but I always think, especially now, we've seen this in the last decade, digital forensic evidence, it has become amazing and so strong. And now the DNA evidence has changed so significantly, the technology and how strong that's become. And then if you add the circumstantial, which is what I would say with crimes, it's logical, right? When you hear the truth, you're like, even if it's a crazy thing that you would never arrive at, when you hear the truth, you know it. I don't know why, but you just do. So it was an interesting discussion, and that's what I mean. When we all get on YouTube and have the discussion, it goes in a bunch of different directions, but it's always about either human relations, the science, and also about justice. So that's why I so enjoy your comments. And then one last comment here. This is from Crazy Cat Lady Stephanie. Love the handle. Hi, Ana, Tracy, and team. I love your passion and your compassion. Thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. And Tracy is Dr. Tracy Tambora, who is a professor of criminal justice in New Haven, Connecticut. And she is a fan favorite. Everybody loves Dr. Tambora because when Dr. Tambora comes on the podcast, it's literally like you're sitting in school in a good way. In a good way. She explains everything. So she's amazing, and she's back with us now and back at school. So we're so happy to have her, just like you, Mike.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, I have a blast when I come on, and I just love the opportunity. And, I was thinking about that one person who submitted the chat where she talked about what I remember a faith leader calling tender mercies from heaven. That at least she had that connection with her daughter, even if she hasn't been able to locate her body, and we hope that happens sometime. But what a tender mercy to have that connection right at that critical moment that they somehow connected. And what a testament to the true crime community, because really across the board, it is really good people just trying to find out answers, maybe figure out how to minimize their own risk. But most importantly, they're not out to re-traumatize people. And I just really think it's neat. So thanks.
Yeah, no, agreed. And that's what I enjoy. I enjoy hearing from all of you. And it also is amazing and how grateful I am that you all sit there and you spend an hour of your time with us every week. And I am truly grateful for that, because you all are very, very busy. And I did mention this last week that we won an award at CrimeCon. We won a Clue. You were there, I know, and you texted me. For best podcast, episodic podcast.
I kept looking around thinking, where? I've got to hug her. It was awesome, and it was so neat to see it up there and to see your remarks on that big screen as it was being presented. Congratulations. So cool.
Thank you. We are very honored for that. We're very honored because that episode was about a survivor's story. And I'm deeply touched, very deeply touched and humbled by it. And I think it's so funny. Mike said something to me before we started recording, and it was about this birdhouse. If you're a regular with us, you know that Mike King made this birdhouse for me. And when he was in LA a few months ago, I took him out to dinner and he gave me a birdhouse.
I had to somehow pay for my meal.
That's right. No free rides here, buddy.
That's right.
And you said someone at CrimeCon actually came up to you and asked you something about the birdhouse?
one of the attendees came up and said, I watch Ana, I've seen your birdhouse, she's spoken about it, how do I purchase? And I said, they're not for sale.
This is what I love about the crime community, right? Because in every little moment there is grace, right? There's a moment, there's a little moment of connection, and I think that is so lovely and endearing. It's so lovely.
Yeah,
so
it was fun.
All right, Mike, where can people find you, follow you, and what are you up to? Do you have a new project coming out?
Oh man, it's been busy. I've been busy. I just returned from Australia. Was down there shooting a 4-part documentary on a serial killer case down there. It's going to drop in December, so we'll announce that when it gets close, and I'm really excited about that. On October 16th, Gardens of Evil is going to drop, the new podcast. And if you just go to profilingevil.com, you can get a link to that to sign up for it. But we're really excited about it because we're pushing the proceeds toward advocacy kinds of roles. As you know, we use the proceeds from Deceived to provide funds for the new Children's Advocacy Center that opened up a few months ago. And Ana, just 4 days ago, my wife and I announced at the Weber State Scholarship Luncheon a brand new King family endowment that we're using money from what we've been able to get through Profiling Evil, and we've created the Scholarship for Criminal Justice. So it's been really a lot of fun. And in 2 days, I'm heading to Budapest to do a couple of kind of fun things, and then I'm hoping that after the Chiefs Conference in October, that life settles down.
Wow. I'm sorry, and you did say you retired?
And I am thankfully retired because I don't know how I have time to do anything else but goof off.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well deserved. You work very, very hard, and I know that you care very deeply. You don't just say it, you do it, and now you are providing the funds to help survivors. So you put your money where your mouth is.
It's been an honor to be a part of all of this. And I'll tell you, without friends like you, it just wouldn't be possible. So thank you.
Aww. It's always a pleasure to have you on, Mike. You can find us on social media with one simple handle, My True Crime News. Quite simple. I know, it's hard to believe we actually came up with something so simple. Mine is Ana G News, Ana with one N. You're also funny when you post on YouTube, Ana with one N. It's like, it's become part of my name. Ana 1N Garcia. You can get this podcast, all our podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel because, as you can see, there's a lot of cool conversations that take place on YouTube. So it's really, really fun. And don't forget, we have a newsletter. You can subscribe at truecrimenews.com. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. And as we now say, crime never stops. Neither do we.